Welcome to the Peace Circles meeting, July 19th, 2023, coordinated by Black Women for Positive Change.
Hello, and thanks to all of you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Dr. Stephanie Myers, and I'm the National Co-Chair of Black Women for Positive Change. I would also like to introduce our co-chairs for this evening, Professor Renata Valree from Cal State University at Dominguez Hills and the Peace and Education Project, and Kimberly Best, who is the CEO of Best Conflict Solutions. We are planning for the 12th annual Month of Nonviolence, Families, Voters' Rights and Opportunities in October, from October 1st to the 31st. And this year, we're going to be focusing on peace circles. So this afternoon, we have a wonderful group of people assembled, and we're going to talk about what peace circles are, how they work, what the whole point of restorative justice is as it relates to bringing people together. I'd like to just share with you a few background thoughts about Black Women for Positive Change. We are a multicultural organization. Although our name is Black Women for Positive Change, we have men members. We call them our good brothers. We're intergenerational with people from the Alpha generation, ages 5 to 12, on up to the Gen Zs, the Millennials, Gen X, and right on up to the baby boomers, of which I happen to be one. We're very interested also in interfaith communication, Christians, Muslim, Jews, Buddhist, Hindu. So we're really broad in our approach. And we are talking today about peace circles and how they can be used during the month of nonviolence in October of 2023 to stimulate ways that we can change the culture of violence. We have to stop this confrontation. We have to find ways to get along, communicate, to make things better. So with that, we're going to have our meeting this afternoon, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you one of our members who happens to be superintendent of the superintendent of the Penn Hills School District right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's a member of our group. She has been for some years, and it is really our honor that the Pittsburgh community and the Penn Hills School District has been such a supporter of the weeks of nonviolence and now the months of nonviolence. So it's my honor to introduce Superintendent Nancy Hines, who invited a number of you to join us this afternoon. So Dr. Hines, please give us a few words of greetings. Thank you very much.
Disclaimer on it. I'm physically moving to my parents' home here. So I've got my t-shirt on and I've got people running around. So it's a pleasure always. As you mentioned, we've been part of the group, and I say we, meaning the school district, for many years. I go back to the drop. I think that was one of the first activities, and we had the opportunity to take our football team, our coaching staff, our basketball team as well, our transportation provider, provided free services to take the kids to the movie theater. We had one of the guest stars from the video who joined us that night, thanks to Diane Powell, and got to debrief, lead questions, and so forth. You know, just getting the kids to slow down, to think, try to curb that impulsivity that oftentimes contributes to the violence, the violent outcomes, and so forth. So that is one of the inaugural events that we participated in. As you mentioned, we participated throughout the school district. I saw Kristen Brown, one of our principals here, logged on from the elementary. We've asked each of our principals every year to recognize, acknowledge the theme, and they tie it into the curriculum for that particular day, week, or month. And the kids had done art projects. They had written poetry that had the theme of peace and community. And we really try to celebrate community. Our school board, in its insight, I would say in 2016, actually changed our policy, and they recognized that punitive only sanctions really didn't resolve the issue, the aggression. And so now we have mandatory mediation, and we have a core group of individuals in every school who are tasked with trying to mediate when kids have differences of opinion. And again, not bringing angry kids back to school where they're left to their own devices, and to try to navigate solutions to the problems, which are often violent, as you mentioned. I also saw Alicia Lentz is on here from the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. And most importantly, Alicia has worked with Woodland Hills School District, and like our district in Penn Hills, lost a number of kids to violence. And that's, really hard to lead the grief process and the kids and the tendency for retaliation. And so we try to weave all of that into, as you're suggesting, different outcomes. and it's foreign to the kids. Oftentimes they're not thinking, they're punking down if they're talking instead of fighting, or pulling out a weapon and what have you, and try to reprogram that thought process and to slow them down. So it's a privilege and an honor to be part of Black Women for Positive Change. And you have made me feel very welcome from day one. I think I mentioned to you before, I was a little bit afraid of the title because I don't fit the description, but you made me feel so very, very welcome. And I think sometimes that's one of the hurdles. You often, and Diane Powell as well, have advertised opportunities to join with the group or to participate in some of the speaking engagements, to listen, tune in, and sometimes we're intimidated by the name. But I really appreciate that you reference that you really are multicultural. You're very welcoming to anybody who wants to join the initiative. So that's kind of a summary of what we've been doing in Penn Hill School District. So thanks again for allowing me to share that.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Hines. And the Penn Hill School District, you are the model for what we've been working with for the past number of years, your elementary schools, your middle schools. And it's really something that only one school district so far has gotten on board with this effort. And so we need to really document Penn Hill School District, because your members have been terrific leaders. I recognize some of the names like Kristen Brown and some of the schools that have been doing the work that you mentioned. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate your leadership. We need to document it, and we need to get other school districts on board with this whole effort. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to the co-chairs of our Peace Circles Committee for Black Women for Positive Change, Professor Renata Valree and Kimberly Best. And please, ladies, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I do want to acknowledge a very special man who really helped us pull together an amazing toolkit that you all will receive. I want him to talk a little bit about the importance of the work he does. One of the things I admire about Joe Bloomer is he's taken this whole restorative process and implemented the restorative process with trauma-informed approaches, which is amazing, amazing. So Joe Bloomer, my friend, former board member of NAFTA, he's an author. He's a real funny guy. He's a sweetheart. He's a practitioner, and peace is at his core. But he is also an expert in restorative justice. That's why I reached out to him. So I want him to take a few minutes and talk about what I think is really key here, the importance of teachers and students working together to co-create the scripts, to co-create this entire process within their respective schools. Joe, it's all yours.
Hey folks, thanks for having me. So my name is Joe Brummer. I work out of Connecticut, and working in schools here in Connecticut, but also working at schools across the country and occasionally around the world, and particularly trying to merge trauma-informed principles with restorative justice principles and restorative practices in schools, but also within our at least here in Connecticut, within our juvenile justice system. Even working with our youth diversion teams to bring in circle process, restorative processes, and trauma-informed processes to the work. And I met with Kim and Renata earlier this week, and we talked about the project that you're looking to accomplish. And one of the things I noted for both of them is that I was curious what the role of youth would be in this process of creating circles. And so one of the things that I'm hoping that I can convince you all today is that we make this project more collaborative between adults and youth. And so a major principle of restorative justice thinking is that we don't do things to people and we don't do things for people. We do things with people. And so if you're going to create scripts and circles and any kind of a youth serving toolkit or process, that really is much better done when you do it with youth, as opposed to doing it for youth or to youth. And so here in Connecticut, one of the things we've been doing is circle trainings for youth and adults as a mixed group. And so we get a bunch of educators from the schools and youth in those schools, and we train them all together. And we have them design circles and circle scripts together. And so that it's a collaborative process between both adults and youth. And so one of the things when listening to Renata and Kim, it seemed like the toolkit that they were trying to create really was about creating something for adults to go work with kids and really doing it for kids. When I really want to see this project become more something that's done in partnership with youth as opposed being done for them. I don't know if that makes sense to y'all, but and so I'll ask Renata and Kim if they have anything that I should add or that you're hoping I'll add, or if there's questions that folks have about sort of restorative justice principles or circles. But let me ask Renata and Kim first if I covered what they hope I would do.
No, I appreciate you covering that. I mean, I was always taught as a practitioner that you don't create anything for anybody without involving them in that process. So I appreciate you sharing that. Kim, is there something you'd like to add? Because I know Joe is also in the middle of publishing a second book.
Yeah, I just want to add for everyone here that it was Joe's generosity. I mean, he basically gave us every tool he had to put together for this toolbox. So we owe him a debt of gratitude for sure. Thank you, Joe, for that.
Yeah, no worry. And if there's more that you need, I'm sure I can dig up more stuff.
We know where to find you.
Yeah, I didn't have the time to be able to offer you that I could do that for you, but because I'm pretty overloaded.
Well, I have one thing I'd like you to share before you need to leave, Joe. Is to
Sure.
talk a little bit about your initial book, the one My Students Happen to Love, and how that fits into what we're trying to accomplish.
So my first book, which is coincidentally sitting next to me because I'm quoting myself in the second book, sitting here next to me, and surprising me that I wrote things I don't remember writing. But this is the first book, and it was really an attempt to bring the principles of trauma-informed work into restorative practice work. And for what that really means is that there's an assumption about restorative justice work that it's inherently trauma-informed. And the reality is it's not. If we don't intentionally approach restorative justice work with a trauma-informed lens, you can put people in a circle and yell at them. It doesn't mean it's restorative. And so it's really that thinking that how do we change our lens when we circle up youth, especially if that's a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 circle where actual harm has happened, or we're looking to hold a youth accountable for harming someone else. If we're still looking at that through a lens of behaviorism or ABA, chances are we're going to do harm because that stuff doesn't line up to the neuroscience of how brains work. And unfortunately, the way that we're handling a lot of behavior issues with youth in schools, in juvenile justice work, which I hate the term juvenile justice, because when else in life do we use the term juvenile? There are no juvenile football teams. There's no juvenile choirs. There's no juvenile anything unless we're talking about bad kids. And then we have this juvenile justice, which isn't justice at all. It's just punishment, which kids don't need. What kids need are supports and skills, and punishment will never teach them that. And so a lot of my work in the first book was to help schools and educators really understand how children's brains function and develop. But also when they do mess up, what is involved in helping that student be accountable without adding suffering to anybody's life. And at the end of the day, punishment is the addition of suffering to another human being. And it's deeply one of my beliefs that we as humans do not have the right to inflict suffering on others. And each time that you punish a child, the intention is to cause discomfort. The intention of punishment is to cause pain. And technically it's operant conditioning through negative reinforcement. And that negative reinforcement is meant to cause discomfort and pain. I morally do not think human beings have the right to inflict pain on each other. I don't care if you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. You're inflicting pain on another human, and you don't have that right. And so the importance of restorative justice with youth is to be able to guide them, teach them values, direct them, and do those in a way that are both preventative. So how about instead of waiting till kids cause harm, let's prevent that harm. And we do that through creating the environments and creating better situations for kids to behave in. We often create the circumstances where kids behave. And if we've created a circumstance where they're going to behave poorly, that's not on kids, that's on us. And very often we don't do that. And so a goal of this book was to help educators, especially in administrative levels, to be able to create school climate and culture where they're based on relationship and they're based on developmental values and neuroscience. How does a brain develop? And what does a brain need at different points to develop the skills that are necessary to behave? For many of our kids that have been exposed to trauma, behavior becomes hard because all behavior is state dependent. And so you literally lose IQ points when you are under stress. That's why all of us have gone around searching for our glasses in a frantic, panic, not even realizing they're sitting on our head. And don't tell me that there isn't a person on this call that hasn't called a friend to say, have you seen my cell phone? And the reason we do these things so basically stupidly is because under stress and duress, our brains go into survival mode and shut off thinking. We don't take that into account for kids' behavior. We also don't take into account that the frontal cortex, which allows you all your best behavior, it's not fully developed till you're about 30 years old. And so not only under stress can these kids not access their best thinking, it's not fully developed. Yet we expect them to be able to manage their behavior from the top down all the time. It's an unrealistic expectation. And so part of this book's goal is to help educators understand children's behavior more clearly and to get away from these carrot stick models that ultimately just do harm. And unfortunately, it is brown and black children 3 times more likely to be suspended. Our LGBT kids 3 times more likely to be suspended. And we know that we are at this point in time, who's taking the hardest hit on these negative punishment strategies is young Latin women, especially in high schools. That is who's getting the biggest hit right now. When you look at the statistics, who's the biggest hit is happening to young Latino girls. And until we start waking up to how brains develop and setting up environments where they can do their best stuff, we're not helping them. And so this book's goal was to really address some of those issues. And the book was published in 5 countries, the US, Canada, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia. And so, yeah, that's my really poorly done elevator speech.
That was beautiful, actually. It was very, very, very good. Dr. Myers would like to ask you a question, and if anybody else wants to ask a question after her.
Yes, thank you for that overview. During the years that we've been doing our month of nonviolence, a young man once responded to me. I asked him, why are you so angry? Why are you guys so violent? Why are you in these gangs? Why are you doing all this? And he said, because your generation has failed to give us dreams. We don't have a vision for our future. We don't know what we want to be. So my question is, how can we motivate the cities, the states, the country? What kind of opportunities do you think that the young people are looking for? How can we intervene in some way to answer his question about opportunities?
Yeah, that's
it was a tough one. He knocked me over with it. Yeah.
One of the things we've done for today's children, and this is a little bit of like a preview of what the second book is about. We have just set up a toxic environment for children. And so I'll give you an example of that. If you were to go back 1,000 years, so remember the human brain and human beings in our current form, we've been around for about 250,000 years. And for most of those 250,000 years, we have lived in small hunter-gatherer communities of about 50 to 80 people. And so the ratio of adults to a child was about 16 to 1. Thousands of years, this is how we lived. Now we sit around and applaud a single mother working 3 jobs, raising 5 kids. And somehow we think that's like heroic. It's not, it's toxic. And it is not how the human brain needs, it's not able to meet the irreducible needs of a child. And what it does is it pits children against their own needs. Can I authentically be who I am and still have you love me? So we pit authenticity against attachment. And we all know that, you know, I'm sure everybody on this call understands what attachment is and how important. I mean, we are hardwired to connect with each other. And now we're living in this really global world where kids are seeing climate change, political unrest, racism, homophobia, war. And so if you go to today's children and say, you know, there's a future, there's a vision, they don't believe you, because everything we're doing doesn't line up to what we're saying. And so, and at this point, we have literally normalized traumatizing children.
So how do we fix it?
Oh God, I keep working on that. I guess, you know, I think the real answer to that question sort of lies in this idea of, you know, I like Kim's answer there, together. That is the answer. I mean, we have to build a better relational ecology. So if you think of an ecosystem, right? Everything in that ecosystem feeds itself either in a positive way or a negative way. When the ecosystem's been damaged and it's no longer healthy, rather than it feeding itself and keeping itself thriving, it starts to deteriorate. Well, that's what we've done to the relational ecology of schools, the relational ecology of communities. And you know, go to any restaurant right now and you'll find a family of 6 looking like this. Those are important moments in a child's life to connect and create relational. If you don't use parts of the brain, they don't grow. And so the relational abilities of children aren't growing. We're asking them to sit in desks for 6 hours a day. We're depriving them of sleep. You know, our high school starts, I know kids that are getting up at 5 in the morning to catch the bus, meaning they are losing out on really important REM sleep that should be happening at that hour, the hours they're off catching a bus. And we, the adults, we centered everything around adults and making money, when we should be prioritizing the well-being of children, which I know sounds really harsh, right? I guess, sorry, not sorry. It's sort of like I think the way we change this is to start prioritizing the actual well-being of children. And stop trying to call it self-care. Like, we need to really focus in on what children need and how we're actually going to meet it. And so it's rethinking school, it's rethinking healthcare, it's rethinking everything around us to be more centered on the development of children. And, you know, I feel like that's a really big uphill battle, but it's pretty much the only, I truly believe it's one of the only outs we have to the situation we're in. Hey, sorry to sound so doomsday-ish.
No.
But, you know, at the same time, hope lies in that trauma. Like, when we talk about trauma, you can't talk about trauma and not talk about resilience. And so we could be building resilience in children. And the way we do that is to build resilience in the adults who care for them. But right now, the nervous systems of adults are trash. And children feel that. And on every level, their brains are programmed to read our nervous systems. And our nervous systems are not in a good place. And so if we could work on that, work on the nervous systems of adults, regulate them, start making them healthier, you'll start changing things for kids. I see 2 hands up, Mary Grace, and I don't know how to say her name and I don't want to mess it up. So I'll ask how to say it instead.
Okay, hey Joe, thank you for
Hey.
coming.
Thanks for having me.
I wanted to add into that pile of a sort of awareness of, especially that the teenage kids, of one of the things we can do as a society is to trust them and give that, you know, you look back in farm age when at age 14 and 15, kids were getting married, you know, legitimately, having houses, raising, you know, farms, they're out there working. Now, personally, I think that's too young, but my point is these kids from like middle school to high school, we're still treating them like second graders. Sit in your desk, be quiet, follow the rules. Here's what you need to do, instead of giving them the freedom to create and make decisions and make mistakes. I mean, their mistakes are punished because they didn't follow the second grade rule. They don't want to follow the second grade rule. I think they feel that disrespect and they just rebel against it. You know, I think that is the environment in this situation. When you talk about environment and circumstances, I would love to see modified to be a co-creative, empower your brain and your creativity and experience. Oh, am I good at mechanics? Am I good at computers? Did I write a good article? Did I, you know, give them that, not just homework.
Yeah.
That's all.
And basically that's just acknowledging sort of like Erickson's stages of development, right? Which I'm assuming, making the assumption that y'all know what that is, but you know, if we know that when they get to that teenage years, it's identity seeking. They're trying to find out who they are, and they might try on a few hats before they find theirs, but we're not giving them the space to do that. We've put so much control on their lives. We literally schedule everything they do, everything they eat, everything they read or don't read. And God forbid you should say the word gay. You know, we're controlling every aspect of their life, and that's just not healthy for a brain. And so, you know, or we don't see them at all. And so 100% I'm with you. Who's next?
Drew, does that help?
Yes. Hey, my name is Jewett McLemore. I go by Jew. That's fine. So I just wanted to introduce myself and say thank you to Kimberly Best. She invited me to this panel, and I'm really grateful to be here and hear, you know, the direction that you guys are heading in as far as, you know, how we're, I guess, raising our youth right now. So what I'll just say that I'm with a nonprofit called Serve and Connect down here in Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh, nice.
If you're familiar with it, you would know that it's our CEO is Cassie. Our mission is to just bridge the gap between communities and law enforcement. It's a touchy subject. We know everybody has their personal experiences, and a lot of the partnerships and events that we do are surrounded, you know, by the community, which also includes the youth. So, and I can say that before this, I was running an after school program, summer camp program by myself for 4 years with a recreation agency. And I like to hear that this organization is working on how can we develop our kids to handle just life alone. But of course, starting with adults, us working together. So I'll get straight to the question. My question is, hearing about this for the first time, is the idea to come up with a formula that best works in the school, I guess. So once a child reaches a certain age, or is it just until they stop at a certain age? I'm trying to see if I know we can't see into the future, but if you guys trying to come up with a formula that works in the school district for right now, or, you know, are we really trying to hit home? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So is this sort of like I think the answer is not really a formula, it's a paradigm shift, right? It's I think, restorative justice in and of itself, trauma-informed principles in and of themselves are not a program. They're not a philosophy. They're literally a way, they're a lens of how we look at youth and adults that prioritizes nervous system regulation. Kids and adults can behave awesomely when they are in states of nervous system regulation. And the reason for that is because under a calm, regulated nervous system, you will have the ability to top-down regulate your behavior. In other words, the best, most higher thinking parts of your brain are able to control you. But the second your nervous system starts getting dysregulated because you can't find food, you can't find safety, and you don't feel like you belong, you're going to start behaving poorly because you won't be able to access the skills that allow you to do better. And so I think the real thing is to figure out how we can restructure everything we do through that lens of applied neuroscience.
Okay.
Does that,
I think
does that answer your question?
No, I think the key word I heard was figuring it out, and that's what we're all trying to do.
And
I got you.
It's a partnership, right? It has to be.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Who's next?
Ms. Lentz?
Oh yeah, Miss Lentz. You can see that I have to do this to read everybody's name.
Me too. And
I'm over 50.
If you want me to, I'll put my glamour shot picture back up because I look terrible today because it's a random Wednesday in July. But anyway, I just wanted to say first, thank you to Nancy for inviting Michael and myself and some other people from Pittsburgh to this call. And I just wanted to kind of thank you for putting us in this space. And to Joe, your point and everybody else, and it's interesting when you say a few things. So I've always been a K-12 person administrator. I worked closely with Nancy because the school district I used to work for bordered her school district, and we had a lot of the same issues in terms of gun violence. And I had 6 students die on my watch within a seven-month span. One of them was a 7-year-old with his dad during a drug deal. So the trauma and all of that is real. And we've been doing the restorative work for about 7 years. And I was lucky to travel to Oakland, California, which I feel is the Mecca and the RJ work they do in the Oakland Unified School District.
I have my RJ shirt on
with those guys. But the one thing I wanted to say is now I'm in, and cover your ears, Joe, but I'm in the juvenile justice world, right? So I'm the director of alternative ed. So we have 2 alt ed schools. We also service the juveniles charged as adults in the Allegheny County Jail. So these are kids that are in there for murder, homicide, attempted homicide, rape. They're charged as adults because there's a statute here in Pennsylvania. It's called Act 33. I was actually just there yesterday because we had a guest speaker and I was, talking to my kids. I think the critical part of all of this is, and I've always been this believer that communities need to recognize that the school is the center of the community, and the school has to recognize that the community is their center. And I strongly believe, and to your point, Ju, and it's interesting you say you were in Columbia because I just did some consulting work with their juvenile system. We should talk offline because I was like, whoa, anyway. But I really think that, when we build a strong community and kids know that school is a safe space for them when they have that traumatic event, when they are in that fight, flight, or freeze, at least they know they're in a safe space where people care about them and people love them, so that the trauma won't be as impactful because they understand that they're in a good place. And so what I've been doing around Pittsburgh and Michael has, we're like best friends. So we've been doing this work not only in the lens of DEI, but really looking at how we can be restorative, how we can build community, but also how we can heal. But when I look at my kids in the county that have murdered people, you have to look at, how did this happen to you? What has happened to you? And how do we reach out to those families, those younger siblings, that community, to restore them back to the community, right? Because that victim offender dialogue is so critical, and that accountability piece, because to your point, Joe, this isn't a curriculum. You can't buy a book. Yeah, there's resources, but you have to change hearts and minds and build a strong community. And we cannot expect broken communities to heal broken kids, right? So it really is, you know, how we work together. And I'm very excited about this work. I myself am bringing a lot of different kids from different school districts together here in Allegheny County to really start a regional restorative community, because we know that our kids are all connected when things happen, whether they're in the suburbs or they're in the urban fringe of Pittsburgh. And so I don't have a question. I'm just like, thank you, because this work can get icky. And some people think that, you know, we're going soft on discipline and all of that. And what I've been really working to do is making people understand that when we as humans are accountable, that's hard, right? To say you're sorry takes a lot of, you know, self-actualization that goes on, because suspending a kid for 3 days for calling me out my name, but not having that conversation of like, what did I do for you to call me and MFing B, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know what I did for you to be mad at me. Like, if my kids would ever, and my kids never called me that, by the way. But anyway, if they ever did, I'd be like, why are you calling me that? Like, what did I do? I'm so sorry. But we as adults get offended when kids are in a bad mood and they project it onto us. And so I really think that for this group, and I'm excited to be a part of it, and I hope you guys keep me, but to really make people understand that accountability is where the healing starts, right? But that can't happen unless we have a strong foundation in community. So I'm just saying thank you, and I'm here for the work. And I will put my glamour shot photo back on because I look messy.
I just, thank you for sharing. That was a lot. And I think, you know, we have a limited scope of this particular project. And we could have Joe hold these conversations for months, probably. So there is a lot to talk about and a lot to work through. And Joe, you're a brilliant speaker. Maybe we can have you back to have more conversations, but maybe in the time we have left, which is just 20 minutes, we can lean into what this particular project is. And I'll let Renata take it from here.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do, thank you, Joe. I appreciate you taking time. I know that book is waiting for you. So
thank you. I do have to run to have another Zoom. So it's nice meeting you. If any of you have questions, please feel to reach out. I know Renata has my contact info, and feel free if you ever have questions. I'm super happy to send resources or help, but I'm pretty overextended right now, so I can't take things on, but I certainly will send resources. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do now is just to make it easier, I'm going to call your name. I'd like for you to tell me the name of your organization and what city or state you're in and what your experience is with circles. So I see Vanessa.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Vanessa Mayers Snyder. I am a consultant doing some work with the University of Pittsburgh with the Just Discipline Project, as well as Expect Respect. And those are projects that we're working in the schools with youth, and have done, do a lot of restorative circles through our project with Just Discipline, which I am a co-lead on. So we're in the school districts, actually have restorative practice coordinators that are in the school. They're with the students, teaching them how to do circles, not only healing circles, but also returning circles for students that have been suspended or something has happened. So there is a circle when they return. And so been around community mediation and work like that for a while now, but I'm really excited to have a chance to be a part of this, and know quite a few people on the call already, with Miss Sandra over there, Miss Sandy, and a couple people doing some work in the Penn Hills area.
Thank you. Andrew?
Hello and thank you. My name is Andrew Johnson. I am the executive director for an organization called Youth Guidance here in the greater Pittsburgh region. It's an organization based out of Chicago. We are the ninth city that is launching what is referred to as a Becoming a Man program, or BAM. And within the BAM program, there are circles. So the youth are participants in group counseling models that utilize circles, and then also one-on-one counseling when needed. And Penn Hills is one of the schools, one of the 6 schools that we will be launching in here in fall 2023 in the Pittsburgh region.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Grace. Okay.
Sorry, I have something going on here. I might have to sign off pretty quick. So
Your name is Mary Grace.
My name is Mary Grace. I'm in the Seattle Everett area of Washington State. And I am just finishing up my negotiation, NCRP, negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building master's program at CSUDH. And, well, can you hear me? I think I've frozen.
Yeah, we can hear you.
My experience has been a lot of community dialogue for the past couple of years. I've been working with Professor Valree with the Compton Healthcare Initiative. Well, it's our initiative. And, you know, for my entire lifetime, all of my different careers, I realize I have been doing restorative circles mostly with youth, with kids, with, you know, in coaching positions in schools. And, you know, I was always in there. And as the go-to mom, I found I used all of these principles. And so going through this program has been able, you know, I've been able to solidify what it is that was happening and get more tools. And I'm just launching myself now, getting involved with my own community mediation centers here up in Everett. And just, you know, I love being online because I'm like, I see the community dialogues and I'm like, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. That's where they need me, because there's such power in reweaving. It was, you know, reweaving these communities that are so far apart. So I look forward to seeing how I can pitch in here.
Thank you. Alana.
Hello, my name is Alana Fields. I'm here on behalf of Dr. Liz Miller. So I work for her at the Center for Adolescent and Young Adult Health. I can't say that I'm necessarily been a part of circles, but I am. I have helped develop, train and facilitate a program called Creating Peace, which basically uses like a trauma-informed racial and gender justice lens to address, it's a violence prevention program. So to address those things. And I think that this would be an awesome collaboration between sort of going through that program and then sort of sustaining those groups as peace circles, potentially. Also work with a bunch of other violence prevention programming in the lab. So like Mr. Johnson, maybe talk to you because we have a program called Coaching Boys into Men. So might be able to collab on some things, but yeah, here, happy to help. I've taken notes to get back to Dr. Miller, but also have a whole bunch of ideas based on what everyone is saying. And I'm super excited to be here with you all.
Thank you. Kristen.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kristen Brown. I'm the building principal at Penn Hills Elementary. So we are part of Nancy's fabulous team here that really fosters the use of restorative practices as much as possible. This past year, we have collaborated with the Just Discipline Project, and actually Cindy Perlow on this call is my RP coordinator. And we have been able to really positively impact community building, creating a sense of belonging in our classrooms, and really focus on that as a goal for our school. And we are hoping to expand the model as we continue through the middle and high school, and really continue to support our teachers as, you know, I guess, as Joe had made a statement, that it's really a mindset shift. So that's where we're working to really help our teachers understand that there's so much power in the relationships, in the rapport, in that community that you build. It starts in kindergarten and goes from there. So I'm very pleased to say that even our probably most traditional old school teachers, some of them have embraced the Just Discipline Project and Community Circle model, and our testimonials to the fact that it does work, and we actually are seeing some of those adult mindset changes too. So it's been a really good partnership. We're continuing it this year, and actually a shout out to Cindy, our coordinator. She did some peace circles last year as we participated in the month of nonviolence. So that was her contribution. So we're excited to do it again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Cindy and then Michael.
Oh, sorry. Did you say my name?
Hi,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm Cindy, as Kristen just mentioned. And Vanessa was talking a little bit about restorative practice RPC's restorative practice coordinators and Just Discipline Project. That's me. I'm a restorative practice coordinator at Penn Hills Elementary School. So most of my day is doing circles, and it's amazing. And we, like Kristen was just saying, we've seen a lot of growth and progress and mindset shifts and some really great things happening. So going to really lean into it again this year and encourage even more teachers to participate and collaborate with their students, as we were talking about, is a really big piece of this. And so I'm excited to have kind of this piece focus for at least one of the months, and then kind of keeping it up throughout the school year as well.
Thank you. I can't tell you how it fills my heart to hear about the shift and how people see things, especially adults, to be able to shift and see our youth. I don't care if they're primary, middle, high school, but to see them as individuals who have a voice, who should be treated as equitably as we think we should be treated as adults. So thank you so much, Michael, and then Twyla.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Jones. I serve as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. So I have the pleasure of working with schools throughout the entire county, including Penn Hills School District. And my colleague is on the line, Leisha Lentz, Dr. Lentz. So I actually get to work a lot with DEI and how it actually intersects with restorative justice circles. So that's a lot of the work that I get to do in my job.
Thank you, Twyla, and then we have Lisa and Sandra.
Hello, everyone. My name's Twyla Hampton Brown. I just, within the past couple of years, finished my MA at California State University. I also work with Professor Valree in Peace and Education on the Compton Health Project. I've also had training with the Empathy Cafe, where they do empathy circles. And I think this is possibly similar with just the techniques. And I'm also involved in a training right now with coaching from a psychological perspective. And a lot of the things that Mr. Brummer was saying is kind of piggybacking. So I think learning those skills will be helpful in doing this also. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
I have to give Twyla a little, she's in Ohio, my least favorite state, but I love her. So Lisa and Sandra.
My name's Lisa Hughes. I'm with Black Women for Positive Change, and I live in Ohio, Cincinnati. It's
okay,
right.
well, I love you too,
Right.
but I'm not fond of the state. I'm just gonna be honest.
It's not that bad.
Just say it's all right. It's not the best. We're working on it. I work with Black Women for Positive Change. Before I retired, I did a lot of work with peace and conflict and all with adults. So I'm here to listen, to learn, and to understand, and maybe be able to do better and to support the work here.
Thank you. Sandra.
Hi, I'm Sandra Barker. I'm the principal at middle school here in the Penn Hill School District. This is my 5th year here at Lit Middle School. I was at the high school for 4 years, worked with a lot of Dr. Miller's programs, Boys to Men and things like that, as alternative to suspension type things. So coming to Lytton, Dr. Hines and I wanted to rebuild a very negative culture and climate. We started off with a new directions room instead of an in-school room, including having trauma-informed people such as a school counselor in charge of the room instead of students just sitting there, you know, getting their work done and not really talking about the behaviors and why and the whys that are so vitally important to us. So we built that for the past 4 years. We have a great school counselor here that has conversations with students. We do a lot of group activities in the room. And it's really flourishing where she's having conversations with teachers of students of why they're behaving the way they're behaving and what's the cause and some of the ideas to get across to our staff who's the average years here have been 20 to 25 years here, to get them thinking how to work with our the clientele that we have at this day and age. We also, instead of having a security team, we put in a YES team, youth engagement specialists that work with the students in the therapeutic way. They take timeouts. They've reduced the number of times students come to the principal's office by 1/3 to 1/2 each year. And so we're continuing to work on changing the culture and climate here at Lytton Middle School. That was really very negative when I first started. And we just keep on working with the people here and making changes and getting them to think outside the box. And I've been very positive this summer. I had a team come in to do PBIS, include the rules that they wanted to implement, changes and things like that. And I had a team of new teachers and older teachers working together. They developed this great PBIS, redid it a little bit and developed it for kid-friendly, understanding, going back to basics on classroom management. So it's been a really slow process in my eyes. And Dr. Hines keeps telling me, see what you've done here, see what you've done here. But, you know, you always want it to be perfect, like every year. So I'm hoping this is the year for the push to get like even more people on board.
Congratulations. I love the idea of a youth engagement. That's amazing. Well, thank you all for sharing a little bit about what you do, who you are. Thank you for being here. I'm now going to turn it over to my co-chair, Kimberly Best.
Oh, I'm impressed with all the work you all are doing to help this be a better world. So thank you for that. I've raised 5 kids and have 4 grandkids, and really happy to see the changes for the better. So I want to talk real quickly about our project in the time that we have left. And as you know from probably the site, if you saw it, with Dr. Myers' foresight, we are holding as a focus circle work in the nonviolent arena as the goal for the October event. We do have a sign up on the Black Women for Positive Change site, and I have the link in there. And basically the sign up is to give your organization and, you know, to say that you're planning on doing some project during that month. Now, we are having a 50-state project. This is, we hope to go all around the country, and we do have partners throughout the country. Renata mentioned the National Association for Community Mediation. There's community mediation centers in a lot of big cities, smaller cities, so they serve as a great resource for helping folks who are doing restorative practice work. So just to keep in mind, if you get stuck and want to reach out to one of those folks, they're there. But they'll also be part of this with us. So one thing we do ask is for you all to share this event. And when you sign up, and this is not ready yet, it's going to be a couple more days, but when you sign up online, we will have a toolkit that we will then send out to you. And that toolkit contains, first of all, our overview of this event, which is, as I said before, is still currently online there, so you can read that in the interest of time. How to use the toolkit, the history of circles, which was written by Renata. There will be included a waiver, lots of resources, lots of process information on how to conduct circles. There will be scripts as well as templates if you're able to do the designing with adults and students that Joe was talking about earlier. We'll have videos, we will have YouTube, we will have pretty much every media resource that you can think of, including further books and articles, including research. And then we will have a page that describes the follow-up. So we would like to know how this worked out for you and the people that you do this with, how they experienced it. And we also want to track the responses if possible, because we don't want the voices to be wasted. Like, we want to hear and see if there are commonalities across the country, commonalities in regions of what kids are wanting and what they are needing. And then at the very end of this toolkit, there is a Peace Pledge certificate that you can share with your participants if you would like. And Renata?
Thank you, Kimberly. So what I'd like to do now, I know you all had questions for Joe. I don't know if you have any questions for either Dr. Myers, Kimberly, or myself, but we are so blessed to have you here. Your communities are so fortunate to have you do the work that you do. Sometimes we feel like, as Sandra said, we're like on an island by ourselves. And it's like, gosh, I wish this, when am I going to make this impact? When am I going to see it? When are the youth going to feel it? But they will. Things happen, they move slowly. You wouldn't want them to move too quickly, because then there's greater room for error. So I think that's where we have to recognize that the work we do is a slow process, but the rewards are so great at the very end of it. So I want to thank you for taking your time to be here, and I'll open up for any questions that you all might have.
And I'd like to just make a few comments. I thought this was an excellent session. Thank you so much, Renata, Valree, and Kim. And for the group on the session, let us know what we can do to help you make this special in your community. Do we need to make some t-shirts that are available for you all to be able to get to the kids in some way? We can have a Peace Circles t-shirt or something that we can create. We want them to be excited. We want them to feel, and the adults, we want them to feel a part of something more than just their little niche, but to feel a part of a movement, because what you all have been talking about is just so great. And the attitudes and the belief systems and the things that you're instilling in the young people. And what Joe said about the adults was powerful. So we need to talk about that some more, and how to get some youth input. So please feel free to reach out to us at the end of this meeting or by email at later times, or however you wish. But I think Kim and Renata, a youth session sounds like a good idea to get the input from young people. And perhaps we can have a session in August where we invite some young people to give their input. So we can talk about that some more.
I agree. Anyone have anything else? Yes, ma'am. Alana.
Yeah, super quickly, I apologize. I know we're over time. I just was wondering, I was listening to and taking notes about the website and the sign up. Is there any sort of formal training for like folks to come together, or is it just we get the toolkits and we do this sort of on our own, like with our own little flair, or is there like a formal training that we could attend from you all about like how to go about, best practices and the like?
So what we intend to do is present an introductory, sort of an overview of the process. And then we have partnerships with community mediation centers that do more advanced training. And we'll definitely have a sign up because I've had a couple of people already email me about, just what is a peace circle or what is a circle process? How does it work? So we'll definitely have that available. And again, for more advanced training, we can connect you with community mediation centers or one of these lovely folks like Cindy who does this, and Sandra. That's the beauty of this conversation, is that now you have additional resources to support you. And of course, we're here to support you, and we're all here for our youth. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to this initiative. And thank you, Dr. Myers, for, how does Kim say, Kim, for leading, getting us quickly.
Well, great. Well, thanks to you guys. This was great. This is exciting. And so October is going to be something special, and we're going to make it happen. So great.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your evening or
Thank you.